Hey there, welcome into another episode of UP Power. Whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate you being here. Keegan, let's waste no time, which I'm sure we're going to waste no time Friday night when we have all the action to get to, starting with college hockey, the CCHA. What a weekend it was, especially for the Michigan Tech Huskies.
Yeah,
Going
Kevin.
into Bowling Green. How about that?
And Kevin, there's some. I got to do it.
I didn't say the word yet.
I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it.
Sweep it up.
Sweep it up. Sweep it up. Michigan Tech.
Finally, we got a sweep in the CCHA. 6 points on the weekend for the Michigan Tech Huskies. Keegan brought a prop. If you're listening on Spotify, there's a broom in the studio because, Michigan Tech swept the Bowling Green Falcons. A weekend that, we were looking forward to for a while because Austin Swankler transferred from Bowling Green in September. He's injured. He doesn't play. But the Huskies go in there and get it done 7-0 on Friday night. I think I said it to you Friday. That's a score you expect to see in October.
Yeah.
When teams have, fresh legs and new pieces and, things are weird. Not necessarily in February. You expect more of those 3-1 games that we saw on Saturday, but Friday night was just a shellacking from start to finish.
Yeah, the Michigan Tech Huskies could do no wrong. 7 goals, the most they've scored all season in any game.
Yep.
And the most goals they've scored all weekend. And, throughout a weekend, all season. And it just
10
seemed
on the
like
weekend.
10 on the weekend. It just felt like they were firing on all cylinders. And you want to be playing your best hockey, and they definitely did last weekend. And now can we carry it into this weekend and, secure home ice for the CCHA playoffs?
What I would say was most impressive on Friday night is only one of those goals came on the power play.
Yeah.
So it would have been one thing if Bowling Green was out there completely undisciplined. You have Tech coming in there. Fans are throwing shoes on the ice, which we heard was a possibility. It never happened. Nobody threw any shoes because they had no reason to throw any shoes. But that's not how Michigan Tech won this game. They came out first period, 3-0, went in the first intermission like, oh, we got this. Had the week off, looked fresh. The guy, and they're still very banged up. Across the roster, the defense, Lachlan Getz out for the year. That hurts. That was a guy that really stepped up throughout this season. And then, two of your forwards, you're playing on the top two lines all year, and Kyle Kukkonen and Austin Swankler still out. Might still be out for the regular season finale series against St. Thomas this weekend, but Tech got it done. I think those guys that came in off the bench and were skating for quite a few minutes, more than they did all year, they deserve a lot of credit too.
No, they do. I mean, they that old saying, when your number's called, it's your time, and Michigan Tech answered the call this weekend. Blake Pietro, too, phenomenal, 47 of 48, only allowed one goal on the weekend. I mean, when you have 47 saves over a weekend, you're probably going to win those hockey games. And the offense for Michigan Tech.
That also means 24 shots a night on average for the series, which if you're holding teams under 25 shots, Grant Patolny talks about this all the time, you're in really good shape to win the game.
You're probably going to win. And the offense, Sparks scores 7 goals, and to go in, to have a weekend like that, and now be going into your final regular season series at home, on the road or at home, it spells good things for the Michigan Tech Huskies.
Absolutely. And the other thing, besides only one power play goal, it was spread around. The puck was coming from a bunch of different sticks. Alex Nordstrom, the only one to get 2 on Friday night, 2 of the 7 goals for Michigan Tech. Briefly, we'll talk about Saturday. They looked good again, but not really until the third period. I think they showed us a different way to win a hockey game. They go down early in the third period and then come back and win it 3-1. They showed a lot of poise there on Saturday when they really needed those 3 points, and then they went and got it.
Yeah, and sometimes you see in these hockey games, you get down a goal, and then you kind of get scrappy, and then you end up in the penalty
less than
box.
3 minutes into the third. So you're right. You're scratching, clawing at that point. Like, we need these 3 points. But they didn't really do any of that. They kind of stayed steady. Evan Orr, another unlikely guy, to find the back of the net there and tie the game at 1. And Chase Pietola's first college goal comes at a big time in February.
Yeah. I mean,
the guy who's been really good all year and has played a lot of minutes, but getting a goal there in the third period was huge.
And a huge boost for him now going into the rest of the this weekend series coming up, and even the postseason, and from the season on. Sometimes it's like, when a guy gets going and all it takes is one, and so expect Chase Pietola to, possibly and more than likely have a big weekend like this weekend as well.
And we'll get to Northern before we really dive into what's at stake this weekend here in the UP, both teams at home. But Tech's going to stay injured. They're probably not going to have Swankler. Yeah. They're probably not going to have Kooks this weekend. The only guy who's been injured and might be back is Max Koskapurdy. According to Joe Sean this morning, that is up in the air, but he's really the only one that has the potential to come back this weekend against St. Thomas. So, like I said, we will dive into that after we get to Northern, playing at Ferris State, 8th in the conference, pretty much been there all year. Friday night, 3-2 win. They got it done. Saturday, not the way they wanted it to go, ending up going to overtime, going to a shootout, and losing the shootout, losing the extra point. Pretty significant second to last weekend of the year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you look at the weekend for Northern, Friday, a hockey team that you would be happy with, how they played and how they limited shots for Ferris State and how they, battled down the stretch and got it done. Saturday, not so much. It looked like they were kind of stagnant and, they had some really good looks. But at the end of the day, you can have really, really good looks and it not go in. And, that's something, talking to Grant Petoni this morning, is something that the Northern Michigan team has to figure out, is how, are we going to find the net, right? Defensively, I think, they did a really good job this past weekend limiting Ferris State. I think they had 13 shots
defensively,
on Saturday.
They played strong.
Ferris gets 5 shots in the overtime for a total of 18. Like you said, Grant talks about limiting shots. When you hold the team to under 20 shots more than the entire game, more than likely you're going to win that. Unfortunately, they don't win the shootout. They don't get the extra CCHA point. But they got to find the net. They got to find the back of the net. They got to score.
And that was the issue on Saturday, because it felt like Ryland Van Noonen ties the game at 1 in the second period, 2 minutes into the second period. Yeah. And you think, okay, they're cooking now.
Northern's going to...
Yeah, jump on a Bulldogs team that, besides Luigi Benincasa, who's been really good all year, one of the top players in the conference, despite Ferris being in the basement, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And then they just never really got into a rhythm and spent a lot of time in Ferris's zone and went to overtime, went to the shootout, lost the point. Pretty significant blow. Even it is 1 point, but it's a significant blow this time of year.
It makes things coming up this weekend even tougher, and that's, I think, we've talked about it and beat a dead horse, if you will, about how tough. There hasn't been a lot of separation in the CCHA. Anybody beats anybody.
And that's the reason why they're probably only going to get one bid to the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
On the off chance Bemidji has enough on their resume that if somebody else wins the tournament, the Beavers would still get in. But let's dive into the conference and our scenarios for this weekend. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of moving pieces. Obviously, no surprise with where the CCHA has been all season long. Mm-hmm. So, standings first, Bemidji State in first place with 42 points. Second place, by themselves, the Minnesota State Mavericks with 38 points. Then it gets weird, especially, remember, in the CCHA tournament, the top 4 seeds will host. So tied for third, Michigan Tech and St. Thomas. Mm-hmm. They square off in Houghton this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Massive series.
Massive.
In fifth, by themselves, Bowling Green with 35 points. They're sitting pretty because they have 4 points of separation between them and the 6th place team in Lake State with 31. In 7th, by themselves as well, is NMU with 30 points. And that's where it falls off. Ferris is all the way with 19 on the year. So they're going to be in 8th. But we have our scenarios for Tech and Northern this weekend. Obviously, for Lake State, a lot of places they could end up as well. Courtesy of our friend Dave Ellis, who sent us these scenarios out of the blue on Sunday. We appreciate you, Dave. Tech, we'll start with them. They are tied for third heading into the weekend. They can finish anywhere from second to fifth. They will be the second-place team heading into the tournament. If Mankato sweeps Bemidji and Tech sweeps St. Thomas, it's pretty unlikely. But again, that would move them into second place. Or Tech gets 4 points. That would be a win and an overtime win or a shootout win. 4 points or more, so if they get 6. And Bemidji earns 4 points or more against Mankato. Of course, that's 1 and 2. That's the Premier Series this weekend. But how about that? We have 1 and 2 going against each other, 3 and 4 going against each other, and then 5 and 7 with Bowling Green and NMU. Now, Tech could drop all the way to 5th with some other scenarios that involves NMU. St. Thomas sweeps at Tech, and NMU sweeps Bowling Green, which would thrust the Wildcats to the 4th spot and the Huskies on the road. That would be spicy and quite the opposite of, what we think is going to happen. Is NMU capable of a sweep? Sure, why not? That would be also an epic collapse to finish the regular season from Bowling Green. They would be owned by the UP. Property of Bowling Green State University, just shifted on over to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Now, the Huskies could also finish in 5th if they get 3 points or less, and Bowling Green ends up with 5 points or more against NMU. So there's so much going on. The likely finish, Dave writes here, is 3rd or 4th, which is obvious that they're tied for 3rd right now, that they would end up either 3 or 4. So it's kind of a head-to-head for St. Thomas. Of course, there are a lot of other things that could happen in the Bemidji-Mankato series as well as with the Bowling Green NMU series. But in all likelihood, Tech is playing St. Thomas for the 3 seed in the tournament this weekend, which is exciting because the drop to 5th, while it would be interesting because Northern would slide into 4th. Tech's probably going to be hosting a game in the first round.
Yeah, they're probably going to be hosting the first round of playoffs, and I think when you look at how they play,
and that was not like as likely as it is now heading into last weekend. Just goes to show you how huge the sweep was at Bowling Green.
Yeah, coming away with 6 points. I mean, head coach Joe Sean has talked about it. Head coach Grant Petoni has talked about it. Coming away with 6 points on a weekend is so huge in the standings.
It's so rare.
It is rare. I mean, I don't know. I mean, has that been the first sweep that we've had for Northern or Tech all season? It's been a while if they did sweep.
I
back
can't
in the
tell you
regular
off
season.
the top of my head.
Neither can I.
It's been a while.
So crucial though for Michigan Tech. You got to go get it done this weekend. You're playing for home ice, which home ice in the first round of CCHA playoffs is a comfortable feeling to have. So you got to go get it done against a good St. Thomas team that's not just going to give it to you.
Worth mentioning, if they split with St. Thomas, win and a loss, St. Thomas will have the tiebreaker because they swept at their place.
Yep.
So I guess 4th is the most likely outcome for Michigan Tech, but again, that would lead to home games in the first round, which is always good for us to hear.
Exciting.
Let's get to NMU. Also, from Dave, sending us these, can finish anywhere from 4th to 7th. We mentioned the scenario that they could slide up and finish in 4th. Unlikely, but would be really interesting. They could finish in 5th if the Wildcats sweep Bowling Green and St. Thomas does not sweep Tech. So
Tech, you could.
So St. Thomas ends up with less than 6 points. The Wildcats will finish in 6th if they don't sweep, but gets 2 more points than Lake State, because Lake State is only playing one game this weekend. If Northern doesn't
has to
end up sweeping and moving in to that 4 spot over Tech, then they're going to be on the road in the first round. It just depends on who. Obviously, they would have a preference.
To probably not play Michigan Tech in the first round of the CCHA.
Maybe it would be they played St. Thomas pretty well at home.
Yeah.
But we could get a Tech NMU quarterfinal if Tech sweeps and finishes in second. Unlikely. NMU does not pass Lake State and ends up in seventh.
Yeah.
Obviously, both possible. That would be going on the bookends of our scenarios for this coming weekend. It could also happen if Tech wins the series over St. Thomas and finishes third, and NMU leaps Lake State for sixth.
Yep.
That one is a little juicy.
Yeah,
you could sell me on that one.
Yeah.
Tech loses its series to St. Thomas, but gets at least 1 point to finish fourth, and then NMU sweeps to finish in fifth. Also possible, would require a NMU sweep. Haven't seen that in quite a while. Scenario D for the Tech NMU quarterfinal is our final one. NMU sweeps and St. Thomas sweeps. That would leave them tied for fourth, and NMU would win the tiebreak, and we would be playing in Marquette. That's a lot to digest.
Yeah, a lot to take in.
I kind of just want Friday and Saturday to be here, and I want the games to be played so we know for sure what's going on in the CCHA playoffs. But the St. Thomas Tech series is really interesting. For a number of reasons. You have Tech, what they did last weekend, and how they could finish the regular season on an extremely high note against St. Thomas team that they played really bad against when they were out in St. Paul last month. That was the first series of 2024 for them. So coming out of the GLI, had a little break and then looked flat out there. So that would be redemption. Then you have St. Thomas, who they don't have a NCAA berth to even consider. It's not on the table for them. NCAA says, no, St. Thomas cannot play in the tournament this year. So this is all they have. They want to get a good seed going into the CCHA. Regular season titles off the table for the Tommies. They want to be in good position going into the tournament because, like I said, that's their Super Bowl this year. They can't play in the NCAA tournament based on NCAA rules. So that's interesting. And then you have Bowling Green team that just got swept.
Yeah.
Was playing really well before that, now coming in to take on Northern, which could potentially host in the first round, which would be huge for the Wildcats and certainly unexpected up until this point, really.
No, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think when you look at it, Michigan Tech sweeps Bowling Green. Now, does Bowling Green respond, or are they
on the road? They got swept at home too.
Yeah. Are they going to be able to respond on the road where you know that Northern
all the fans had their right shoe off and they forgot to cheer? You know?
Northern fans are going to be out in full force. You know, last home series of the year before CCHA playoffs. Fans understand that's at stake. The team understands.
You know what really stinks? And I realized today, both schools are on spring break.
Yeah.
It's the second weekend of spring break for Tech and the first weekend of spring break for Northern.
So student section may be a little lacking.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have
That's not good.
You're gonna have to bring.
These schools are all about hockey. They need to move their spring breaks.
Yeah. Or everyone,
This is important.
Stay for the games and extend spring break a little bit.
I don't know. They just should be two great crowds, or four great crowds, really.
If
four games we have coming up.
What I think is going to happen, I think this is fun for us to do. We pick what we think. I don't know why, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with my gut. I think Northern sweeps. I think Tech wins on Friday and goes into overtime and a shootout on Saturday.
Do they win the shootout?
I think they win the shootout.
Because they would get third then.
Because when you look at who you got in between the pipes in Blake Pietla, I think I think Tech wins the shootout.
Obviously, they're well suited for a shootout because of Blake Pietla. So we'll see. That might happen. But like I said, looking forward to it. We also have huge implications for men's and women's basketball this weekend. Thursday and Friday, both schools at home. So that's, a total of 8 games this weekend for us that cover NMU and Tech. Let's start with the NMU men, which we've been talking a lot about for obvious reasons lately, because they can win they have locked up a share of the conference title. Mm-hmm. They can win it outright Thursday against Grand Valley. How is Matt Makerzak feeling heading into this weekend where there's a lot on the line?
Yeah, I mean, definitely pressure, talking to him today. And, I mean, when you're one of the top teams and you're the top team in the conference, you're going to have that pressure. He wants to win that title outright. Having a share of it is all right. But, he wants to win it outright. The team wants to win it outright. They've worked so hard. They've been so successful this season. They've got to go out on Thursday and take it to Grand Valley, playing at home. They're going to have a crowd. They've had them all year, even if it is spring break. Watching them play is a good time to see them play. So they've got to take it to Grand Valley State, because Grand Valley State is going to come out hungry, because we saw what happened when NMU went to their place and snuck away with a win, and that was not an easy game. And when you're at the top of the conference, no game is an easy game. The GLIAC, I've heard I think every coach in every sport that coaches in the GLIAC say it. The GLIAC is not an easy conference to play in, and here's why. It's because every night, every team is going to give you the best 40 minutes or the best 4 quarters or the best 2 halves that they've got, or the best 3 periods that they've got, They got to bring it, because Grand Valley's going to bring it. Hopefully Northern Michigan is healthy. Obviously, not having Weisbrod these last couple of games.
It is looking good, though.
It is looking good.
That he will be back, if not this weekend, by the GLIAC tournament.
Which is, I think
better than the diagnosis we had last week.
Yeah, where it was like, we don't know if it's going to be. I think Brian Parzik also looked obviously not 100%, but
Correct.
What he was able to do this past weekend, even though they didn't, they had that tough loss by 4. What he was able to do, I would say, basically on one leg.
Yeah, I mean, watching the game,
still impressive.
It was essentially on one leg. So,
Matt Makerzak said this, and I think it rings true. If they can up their defense a little bit and play a little bit better defensively, their offense is fine. I mean, they're averaging above 75 points a game. They scored 80 in a loss, right? And you think if they get Parzik back and they get Weisbrod back, that's only going to boost not only their defense, because Weisbrod is probably one of the top defenders in the GLIAC, probably one of the top defenders in the country. It's going to boost their offense as well.
And so just to recap this past weekend for NMU, a 4-point win at Saginaw Valley State on Thursday, 79-75, and then a 4-point loss to Wayne State on Saturday. Wayne State beat Tech and Northern this weekend. Yeah. They needed those wins. They're playing as good as anyone in the conference. When I saw them in December in the PEEF, when NMU was playing in there, they did not look like a good basketball team, but they have put it together. They're 6-11 in conference now. So Saginaw and Wayne State are fighting for the final spot in the tournament this weekend. And if Wayne State didn't get that, they would have disqualified themselves. So huge win for the Warriors on Saturday. You understand why they wanted to get it. But if you're Northern, even with Lake State's loss, you did lock up a share of the regular season title.
You'd be happy with that?
Thursday night when Grand Valley comes to town, you really want to get it done.
Yeah, you got
to and also not leave it up to the last day of the season when it's your senior day. And obviously you're still playing for something, even if you've locked up number 1, your conference champions. I think it'd be a little easier to celebrate the seniors if you've already won the conference. Yeah, and you're the 1 seed going in. I mean, they're probably going to be the 1 seed either way because they own the tiebreakers. But it would be nice not to share the title
and not to have to worry about it. Like to say, hey, we got our business taken care of on Thursday.
Right.
A win or loss on Saturday. We still are conference champs. We're still one. Probably.
Davenport's coming in Saturday. They're 4-12 in the league.
Yeah, I think it's.
You can expect the Wildcats to handle that one, especially at home. So they get to win Thursday, then they senior day Saturday. It just sounds like the ideal scenario for the Cats to get it done, and especially if they have Max Weisbrod. That's a huge boost, even if he's not 100%.
I think the glue that
I don't know if you're a guy who put puts up 15, 20 shots a game, who's the best player in the conference. I don't know if he can be a decoy, but if he's out there on the floor, he's going to make an impact. Because we've seen games from him where he has 8 or 9 assists, and he's making plays happen. He only puts up 5 shots. The win over Wayne State was one of those games. So, obviously, having the best player in the conference back would be huge for the Cats.
It's needed, and you can't quote me because I don't know all the numbers, but Mackerzak and I were talking today. In the last 25 games in the Barry, Northern Michigan is 24-1, and I'll let you know or guess who that one loss is against. Grand Valley State. So
they've really played well in that building.
When you think about it, they do. I think it is, and I think you have to equate it to the atmosphere. And
well, I think visiting teams come in there and it's a hockey arena, or at least it's not like the rest of the arenas
that they
in
play
the league.
Yeah.
Because it goes all the way around. The basket doesn't have a wall behind it, and they say that messes with your depth perception.
Yeah.
That's why you see it in the D1 NCAA tournament all the time when these teams go and play in these giant arenas or in football stadiums in the Final Four. They can't shoot.
And there's air balls, and there's...
So it's a little bit of that at Northern. I like it. It's a distinct, it's a distinct home court advantage, which they might lose a little. I don't know what Vandement's going to look like next year when they move in there, but it is interesting to think about, and especially avenging that one loss in the past 2 years at home would be pretty significant. So we'll see.
We shall see.
Huskies. So looking at the GLIAC men's basketball standings, Northern, we explained 13-3. They are atop the conference, clinched a share of number 1. Lake State behind them at 11-5, the only other team to clinch home court in the first round with the Wildcats. And then Ferris and Grand Valley trailing behind Parkside in 5th, Purdue Northwest and Tech tied for 6th. They have both clinched a spot in the GLIAC tournament. So the Huskies split the weekend just like the Wildcats. And I don't know how much we found out about Michigan Tech. They showed us when Dan Goresker goes 1 for 9 on Thursday night against Wayne State. It's hard for them to win. They lost that game by 14. Just kind of took themselves out of it. Didn't defend as well as Josh Bittner would have liked, as he told us today. So they ended up losing that one and going to Saginaw Valley State on Saturday, a team, like I mentioned, playing for the tournament as well. And Huskies able to lock up a spot in the GLIAC tournament with an 84-79 win, a pretty complete effort from Tech. When you look at the box score here, Marks Tomaszek, 26 points, 7 for 16. Dan Goresker, 9 for 17, 23 points. That's the production you're looking for. And Tomaszek went to the foul line, too. He's 10 for 11 from the free throw line.
You need
That's just a recipe for the Huskies to
if
knock off these teams, albeit a team below them in the standings. They got it done on both ends of the floor when it mattered most. And I just look at Tech as a team that's dangerous. You certainly won't have the expectation going into the GLIAC tournament that they will advance to the championship game again, for example. But in the back of your mind, they probably could.
When you're hot, you're hot. And if they get rolling like they did last year and they get to the GLIAC championship, and you never know. And like you said, the recipe for success are Goresker and Tomaszek in 20-plus figures, right? If they're scoring 20 a night each, and you can get, Dawson Norgard maybe in double figures.
His problem this past weekend for Norgard was getting into foul trouble. He fouled out after 21 minutes on Thursday, and then 4 fouls in only 17 minutes on Saturday. And Bitts wasn't too concerned about it because your 5's going to get some fouls, especially when you're a team like the Huskies that plays physical and you defend, especially in the half court where if they get an inside look that Dawson's going to pick up some fouls. He said where he needs to work going forward. Of course, he's one of their younger players playing a lot of minutes is conditioning and getting stronger, and he won't be as tired and less likely to foul in these scenarios. And that's true for a lot of young guys across college basketball that, once they get stronger, once they're better conditioned to, play 25, 30 minutes a night, then you're going to see less fouls. So I think they're kind of working through that. But Norgard and Josh Therrien, of course, they're always X factors on the defensive end because, a guy like Therrien is not the biggest guy any team's going to see across the league. But, man, he grinds, he gets it done. He played 38 minutes on Saturday. And had 6 points. He took 3 shots. I love watching him play because he goes out there and grinds every possession, loose balls,
rebounds,
playing tough defense. He did have 6 rebounds. Goretzka led the team with 8. But when the Huskies can shoot, meaning obviously they get most of their offensive production from Tomaszek and Goretzka, but when those two are on, and you get, a consistent night,
I'd be worried. I wouldn't
even want to be Grand Valley going in there. Obviously, they take on Davenport Thursday, 4-12. You would hope that Michigan Tech, playing in the Wood Gym, could get it done against the Panthers. But if you're Grand Valley coming in there on Saturday, you don't really know what team you're going to get all the time.
You don't want to know. And I would not want to play Michigan Tech in the first round of the GLIAC tournament.
No.
Because if you play them.
Well, they have the leading scorer in the conference, too.
And if he gets going.
We give Weisbrod all these flowers for being the best player in the GLIAC, which he probably is, but
Tomaszek can put the ball.
Pure scorer?
Yeah.
Marcus Tomaszek might be the best pure scorer in the conference.
He can put the ball in the basket when he wants. And, I wouldn't want to play him.
So it's interesting. We'll see how things shake out on the men's side this weekend. Another team that you really don't know who you're going to get night in and night out, Michigan Tech women.
Yeah. You don't know.
Thursday night, 95 points.
Yeah.
They shot over 70% from the field. This was the same team, I tweeted it out, that scored 45 at home the previous Saturday against NMU. So they're very unpredictable, but a great weekend for Sam Clayton's squad.
95 points.
95 points. And, again, a team that, once a week, once every couple weeks, has been scoring in the 40s.
Yeah.
So just pretty amazing to see what they were able to do both Thursday and Saturday. Now 10-6 in the conference, and, Sam Clayton goes into the bench a little bit, and I think when Sarah Dax has been out, a lot of those players have been able to step up. And on Saturday, it was Caitlin Meister taking care of business, looking like one of the top players in the conference, which she has been over the past month to 6 weeks.
Yep, definitely. And I think that's the story of a lot of teams and just athletics with the GLIAC. We're going to dive deeper into our bench the later the season gets going. And when your number's called, we need you to be able to step up and provide. Because teams are battling injuries and teams are battling, physically being tired, mentally being tired. So night in and night out, you don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody, and we're going to need as much production as you can give us. If the Huskies can consistently score, and that's the thing. If you're having a bad night,
it hasn't been consistent,
and
that
it's not.
is the thing.
And that's the thing that they've got to. However you do it, if you get more shots up, if you run more half-court sets, if you have to get out in transition.
They don't get out in transition very much. I don't think that's going to change. But where they had success on Thursday is, Wayne State put on a press. They were able to break it and, set up their offense a little bit. So I think they've been just doing a really, really solid job. Emma Anderson, the Menominee Maroon, has stepped up, and sometimes she'll step outside and shoot it as well. So
definitely.
I mean, they've been playing some really good basketball. We'll see if they keep it going this weekend. I think on the women's side, when you think about Davenport and Grand Valley coming in here, Number two in the country.
Yeah. Excuse my yawn.
For Northern, they will get the Lakers on Thursday. And then the other team coming in this weekend is 1-15 in the conference, as opposed to Grand Valley, which is 15-1. So
It might be
if you're playing the numbers, both teams are going to split this weekend and be in good position.
It might be the hardest game of the regular season because it's at the end and you're playing the number 2 team in the country. And if you get a win, it means a lot of things. There's a lot of implications for it postseason, you know?
Sure, it's also just going to be a massive upset because they're 24-2.
Yeah, and then you play a team who is at the bottom of the conference and struggling, and maybe probably the easiest game of your season to end it. So, you know, talking to Casey Townsend when we look at NMU now, they know what it's going to be. You're playing a top team in the country. It's going to be a battle. They're going to have to be perfect. They're going to have to score. They're going to have to defend well. They're going to have to rebound well. They're going to have to limit Grand Valley scoring as much as they can, but they're also going to have to keep pace with the Lakers because the Lakers score often and easily sometimes.
Right.
Northern has got to get as much production as they can out of McKaylee Kuhn and as much production out of J.C. Weisbrod as they can. But here's the thing. Grand Valley State knows that McKaylee Kuhn and J.C. Weisbrod are the leading scorers for Northern, so you know that they're going to have a scheme when they come into the Berry about limiting
but
players.
it doesn't always yield results when you have a player like Kuhn and a number 2 option, we'll call her, like J.C. Weisbrod.
I mean, look at what J.C. Weisbrod did this weekend. 21 points the first night.
X Factor.
5
Dare I
threes.
call her an X Factor?
Yeah. Then on the next night, 22 points, 6 threes. She was 15 of 25 on the
solid.
weekend. 11 of 18 from downtown. 11 of 8.
That's an incredible number.
I couldn't make 11 threes if you gave me 100
I mean,
tries.
even watching Marcus Tomaszek against Northern, I think he was 7 for 10, and it felt like he was Steph Curry in the 3-point contest. 11 for 18 is even a different story. That's wild. 11 threes in a game. So good for her. Similar to Caitlin Meister, just been stepping up. Late in the season, it's really fun to watch. Like I said, if we're playing the numbers with the teams they're taking on this weekend, you'd expect Northern 12-4, third place in the conference, clinched a first-round home game. That's really great for Casey Townsend, where she's taking this program. That's a great accomplishment in itself. 12-4 heading into the final weekend. You have Tech in 4th right now. Obviously, they have clinched a spot in the GLIAC tournament. They have not clinched home court, and there's only one of those up for grabs, but they do have a game on Parkside, who's behind them at 9 and 7. They split during the conference season, so I don't know if Tech has the tiebreaker, to be perfectly honest. So if Tech splits like we expect, fall to Grand Valley and beat Davenport, they will be 11 and 7 in the conference. That would mean Parkside would have to sweep for there to be a tie there for 4th.
4th, yeah.
Again, don't know if Tech has the tiebreaker. But that's what's on the line for the women's basketball landscape this weekend. But again, it should be interesting on both sides as we try and figure out what we're going to be looking at the following weekend when things get nutty.
I mean, it's exciting. It's March. You know, I mean, I know it's February, but it's going to be March, and this is the time where, you know, and I think Matt Mackerzak said it very well today, you know, all it takes is a team to get on a run. As soon as it starts, it's 11 games to the national championship.
For sure.
And never say never, because when you look at these teams and the success they've had and the level that all 4 of them have played at this year, that we've seen it for both NMU and Tech, men's and women's. You know, why not? Why not make it to the Sweet 16? Why not make it to the Elite 8? Why not have your name called for the Final 4, right?
Certainly. And let's move on to high school hockey and basketball.
Yeah.
I think let's start with hockey because you made me think of Doug Garrow, the head coach at Marquette. Won his 200th game last week in the regional semifinal, win over Escanaba. And talking to Doug after the game, he said, I would love to finish this year with 204. So, meaning winning the regional final on Wednesday, and then moving on to the quarterfinal, semifinal, and final. And having 204 wins for his career. So, what we're looking at in hockey this week, of course, you will be listening to this more than likely before the Wednesday night regional finals in the Copper Country. It's Hancock and Houghton
Bridge battle.
MAC. I love everything about it. Of course, we'll have highlights of both of these games Wednesday night on TV6. And then Marquette out in the Sioux to take on the Blue Devils.
Road trip.
Marquette we'll have a camera there. Don't
Oh,
worry.
yeah. We'll have a camera.
But Marquette going to the Sioux to take on the Blue Devils, and Houghton and Hancock going at it at the MAC. And this past Saturday was the Regional 17 semifinals, so we'll briefly touch on that. Houghton gets the win over Calumet. Kind of expected it based on the way those teams played all year, but the Copper Kings deserve a lot of credit, to be quite honest with you, because they made it a game in the third period.
Yeah, and I mean, only allowing Houghton to score 4 goals and also getting one yourself.
Well, and Houghton didn't score in that game until under 2 minutes to play in the first when they got on their first power play.
Yeah. Don't let Houghton on the power play.
No.
Don't let him on the power
because
play.
you got number 10, Michael Milet.
Yeah. Don't let him on the power play. I'm looking at you all.
I mean,
or if you're listening, I'm talking to you all.
He's just one of those players, and Houghton does everything right. They're fun to watch.
That's what. Yeah, I mean, they're top 2, maybe 3, number 2 or number 3 in high school hockey, probably.
Sure.
When you look at it, when you look at who they've beaten and who they lost to the number 1 team. So I mean,
who they could potentially see again.
And potentially, more than likely, make it really a game down the stretch.
If whoever's heading down to Plymouth will have to play one of those top teams. That we saw. Both Marquette and Houghton when they were down there at the showcase, they just struggled with a little bit.
Yeah,
I think it was just a little bit different. But anyway, Houghton gets it done in that game over Calumet, 4-1. Eventually, they add an empty net goal. So the Gremlins moving on. Micah Stipich was rather pleased after the game that while Calumet did make it a game early in the third, when they were trailing by 2 and got on the power play, that Houghton stood their ground. Bryant Lee was exceptional.
Yep.
Because he has been all year. Maybe the top goalie in the state. We've said that a couple of times. He's that good. He's like watching Bryant Lee in the MAC on Saturday. I was like, oh, Blake Pietila is here. A little bit like that. So he had a great game, and they got it done. Stipich was talking about they were dealing with some guys under the weather. Some guys had the flu. So they got it done last weekend. Now they've had 3 days to rest up for Hancock, who took down Jeffers, and it was 10 seconds in.
Yeah.
Where the Bulldogs caught nylon, and then they were kind of rolling from there.
I mean, it's the playoffs. That's what you expect. You expect teams to come out. I mean,
well, that set the tone too. 10 total goals. I did head out of there in the third period when Hancock went up 3. But 6-4, the Bulldogs win it, and they jumped down right away. And I think that was the key.
Assert your dominance early. I think especially in hockey when you're playing, and this is something I've talked to Joe Sean and Grant Petoli about, but even a lot of the high school coaches, Doug Garrow, I've talked to him about this year. Playing from behind in a hockey game and playing ahead in a hockey game is an entirely different
It's
atmosphere.
not fun, and some teams
thrive off of playing
NMU is not very good at it.
Yeah,
that's why I was really impressed with Tech coming from behind on Saturday, albeit 1 goal in the third. It was impressive.
But Hancock jumps out, gets it done, now gets the cross-bridge rival. I don't think it gets better than that. Houghton, Hancock, regional, final.
I wish I was on hand for some of their previous games this year. Obviously, we had highlights of it, but I don't think either of us were ever there in person to see Houghton and Hancock go at it. But we will get it Wednesday night. Should be fun, man.
Yeah. Playoff high school.
Houghton Calumet got a little chippy at the end. We finished the game on 2 5-minute majors.
Yeah,
I hope there's no cross-checking into the boards on Wednesday, but I do hope it's physical.
Yeah, I mean,
I expect it to be too.
Yeah, I think it will be physical, and I think it only makes it even more it only makes it matter that much more because it's your rival, because you know who you're playing, because whoever knocks off who has that much more of a chance to make it downstate and to compete for a state title. And, you know, I just think it will be a gritty game, and you can't Hancock has to not go in the box. Houghton is just so good.
They will get buried. Yeah, that's a good point.
They just get they're so good. They're so selfless with the puck, the way they move it, the way they,
Can't let the emotions get ahead of you. It's regional final. There's very few teams remaining across the state, so that will be huge for Hancock. Again, we'll have the highlights for you, that one. Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock at the MAC. Now, Marquette going to the Sioux.
Traveling.
Also Wednesday night, that one puck will drop at 6 p.m. Taking on a Blue Devils team, and I just looked it up. December 8th and 9th was when the Sioux was in Marquette. Sentinels, then not the Sentinels, but Sentinels now, I'm going to call them that. 2-1 win Friday night, and then a 4-2 win on Saturday. So they should be the favorites.
Should be.
Heading into Wednesday night, especially Saturday will be at Lakeview Arena in Marquette no matter what. It'd be nice to have a home game if you're Marquette. So taking on the Sioux Wednesday, I mentioned I talked to Doug Garrow after the win against Escanaba. We didn't know for sure it was going to be the Sioux. We had a pretty good idea. It was Manistee was out there, and the Sioux was only up 1 goal heading into the third, but they got it done over the Emeralds. So it should be an interesting one too. We'll see what Kelly has between the pipes, and whatever else the Sentinels can cook up, and another huge game this time out east in Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, I mean, I think back, and I was at the Marquette Sioux game when they were here in Marquette.
You're at the Saturday game, I was at the Friday game, so we did see them.
We did see them, and I think that is...
Didn't really occur to me then. I'm like, I should really lock in and maybe write down some notes, because these teams are going to meet in the regional final, even though it's somewhat likely that happens every year. But that was a long time ago at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think Marquette got to start early. Got to get on them early. Especially
and that's what they did
road.
to Eski. They buried Eski right away.
Yeah, get out, get up early.
We walked in halfway through the second. It was 5-1. I was like, oh, so this is how we're doing it.
And I think that's huge for them playing on the road, right? They're not at their place, knowing that we win this game and we're gonna be back at our place. Jump on Sault Ste. Marie early, and you'll be good to go. Now for Sault Ste. Marie, it's the vice versa. You've got to not allow Marquette to control the pace of the game. You've got to control and set your own pace. Marquette likes to play fast. They like to move it up and down, and they will, like you said, bury you if you allow them to. They're pretty good on the power play. Some days they're really good on the power play. Keep your emotions in check. Limit them. Marquette, try to get out and get ahead early. Because if you do, it's so hard. 1 goal is not bad. 2 goals pretty tough. When
we've seen it all year.
Yeah.
When they
turn it on.
We keep going back to the word bury, but
they do it.
In a hockey game, when you go up 3 or 4, you're burying a team. Yeah. And like I said, they did that to Eski. I'd be a little surprised if they completely wallop the Sioux, but I wouldn't rule it out. Nonetheless, those 2 winners will meet on Saturday afternoon in Marquette. Really exciting, but before we go, obviously we got to talk basketball. And
should I read the poll real quick?
The poll is a little irrelevant, in my opinion.
Didn't change
at this time of year because, well, 1, it didn't change, and 2,
it's win or go home. So
we pretty much know who the teams are that we're keeping an eye on going deep. Yeah. We'll start in divisions 1 through 3. Iron Mountain, 21-1, have not moved from that number 1 spot, but their draw, and I guess we'll go here. Menominee tied for 3rd at 16-6.
You know it's coming. You know it's coming.
Friday night.
Yeah.
Menominee, Michigan.
Yeah.
The Iron Mountain Mountaineers.
Yeah.
Ian Martela.
Matthew
Kolovecki.
Oscar
Kangas. All the guys are going to go and take on the Maroons more than likely.
Yeah, more than likely. And when you look at the Maroons, Turkoffs and Trevor.
But they also play really good team basketball.
Yeah.
I think Sam Larson's a great coach, and they're athletic. They have Eli Beal.
Yeah.
They have size.
Mm-hmm. Expect that place.
And part of the reason why they're the one team this year to knock off Iron Mountain.
Yeah.
And you were at Iron Mountain's practice last week. They have not forgotten.
No, they have not. They have not. They have not forgotten at all. They understand that, when you look at the last few years, Iron Mountain has been 21-1 or 22-1, and that one loss
Their kryptonite
has come
perhaps
from the Menominee Maroons, and you're also going to be playing at Menominee. You can best
That's
believe
the other thing.
that place, after what they did in football season and all the support that they had in the community, and it was amazing to watch it, you can best believe that come Friday night, the Menominee, the city, will just be closed down because everyone will be at that game.
Yeah, just pray to Lord Jesus that this is the game that we get. Really should be interesting to see. Again, that's Friday night, so how the districts are rolling. This week, Monday, we had the district quarterfinals. A lot of teams that we've been following closely this year had a bye, so they will play Wednesday night. We have a really good game between Escanaba and Negaunee tomorrow in the district semis, which should be really interesting.
Yeah.
And then Marquette going down to take on Gaylord, but they could be home Friday if they win.
Yeah, so, I talking to Rich Letty from Marquette, it's, playing with that poise and confidence, but also being humble. And Marquette is rolling and has been rolling. And going into this districts, playing a Gaylord team, playing on the road, it's, can we get McPhee going inside a little bit? Jackson Jeramu, Kyler Sager, are these guys going to get going? And can you go home and get it? Can you go on the road and get it done knowing, hey, we win this game, we play 4 quarters of solid basketball, and then we get to come home? And
And that's the key. Well, let's talk about last week. I'm forgetting which day it was. Thursday night. Marquette goes into Kingsford. You kind of hype it up.
And buries them.
I mean, a 27-point win on the road
against a very good Kingsford team.
Against a Kingsford team that has only lost to Marquette by 2 and Iron Mountain.
The other
by the second one, I don't know what the final score was, how that shook out, but they got it within 2 in the final 3 minutes of the game. Yeah. So 3 tight losses are the only stains on your resume to the best 2 teams in the UP. And Marquette goes in there, and they said,
hello, we're here.
Quick work.
Goodbye.
I mean, really unbelievable.
You did not expect that.
No, because how could you?
Yeah.
it was
hands them
and it's nothing against Kingsford. They just didn't have it.
Didn't have it
on that night, and Marquette had everything. I was at Marquette practice last week, and they knew that Kingsford game was a little bit. Obviously, they know they've won 16 in a row. They know they're a good basketball team.
Yeah,
they know they can beat many, many, many teams in the state. But going into Kingsford and getting a 27-point win, really, it showed us, first of all,
how
not that our opinion matters, but
I
it showed us that they are for real, and it probably showed themselves a little something.
I think that's a huge.
Why not? That was a line from Jack Quinnell, one of their seniors, was,
why not?
Yeah, we don't. We want to take it as far as we can take it, and I bet that showed them, hey, wait. We can probably take this pretty far. Yeah,
we can probably make a little run here, and
obviously, it starts Wednesday night in Gaylord.
Yeah, and they've got to get it done on the road, and Gaylord is not an easy place to play. I've been there a couple times for basketball. They're going to have a crowd. When you look at the postseason for high school hoops in Michigan, it's not going to be, unless you are playing at home, it's not going to be an easy thing to do because you know that fans are going to be out in full force. Student sections are going to be there. It's going to be wild. It's going to be loud.
I'm hoping Marquette, shows up with a little bit of swagger because they deserve it. They've won 16 games in a row. That's incredible. They haven't lost in 2024.
Yeah.
Their last loss was December 13th.
Yeah.
So
and I go back to, I know we're jumping back subject. I go back to what Matt Mackerzak said. All it takes is for a team to get hot, continue to stay hot, and find themselves in the championship. Marquette is rolling. If they keep it rolling on the road, if they win on Wednesday night,
and I kind of had that small thought that you have with D1 NCAA teams where you're like, okay, yeah. Maybe if they lose one and they learn from it, it's not the worst thing in the world. Kind of had that thought with Marquette. It's like, okay, if they lose to Kingsford, like maybe it's not the worst thing in the world because you don't have this giant winning streak going into the postseason. Yeah. But man, a 27-point win is way better.
Yeah, it's way better than you lost. And that energy I think that they play with, and whoever it is that's hitting shots, whether it's McPhee on the inside, even if he steps outside, and even if it's Kyler Sager from outside, and they run, man, do they run up and down, rebound, layup. If Marquette could shoot layups all day, I'd be convinced that they'd be okay.
Well, they're fast, and what we've talked about with them is it doesn't really matter who's doing the scoring. They are capable of having a lot of guys contributing. Whether it's Wyatt Lankinen getting hot or Kyler Sager will get hot. Obviously, Jackson Jermu is going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit, and he's going to get to the foul line quite a bit. And then Jacob McPhee does this thing inside. So you're feeling pretty good either way, and they play such tough defense. Rich Leedy broke out a 1-3-1 on Nagani, and I think the Miners, they didn't know what to do entirely.
They were ready for it.
I don't know if maybe some of these teams from downstate that they're going to run into starting Wednesday might not be ready for their defense even.
Yeah.
Which is going to lead to points for the Sentinels.
Points.
Because they can score. They had a stretch there where they were scoring 80 points every time out.
I watched them score the other day.
52 and a half, right?
52 and a half.
And yeah.
And that was with their starters out. Right, that wasn't with McPhee and Jermu and Sager and them running, Wyatt Lankinen running it. That was keeping everybody fresh. Imagine what they would have scored playing. I mean, maybe they wouldn't have scored more, but I think they might have scored more as much as they were putting the ball in the basket.
Should be really interesting. We got to the top 4 teams. Should mention Marquette is tied for one with Iron Mountain now in the poll. Like I said, doesn't entirely mean much, but Jeffers hanging out in 5th, still only 1 loss on the season. They've been terrific. Kind of a tough draw because they're not in Division 4. You feel like if the Jets were in Division 4, they would have a really, really good chance to advance far. I don't know their draw off the top of my head. So we'll see what the Jets can do as we get going in districts here. And then in D4, kind of the same story. You're going to catch up with the Munising Mustangs later today.
Yeah.
And they seem rather primed to maybe not a state championship run, but I won't rule it out. No. But to go on another run for sure.
Yeah, I mean Trevor Nolan. I mean I think back to that game where he put up 44.
Yeah.
Felt like all he had to do was throw it up from 3-point land and it was going in. You got Carson Kinnitz, who will be key. You've got Jack Dussault, who will be key.
They're well-rounded.
They've been there. They have experienced it. They understand what it's like. Those players have matured. They play good, hard-nosed basketball. They're at the top of Division 4 for a reason, and expect them to go far.
Yeah, we'll see. They're 17-4, and then elsewhere in Division 4 we have St. Ignace, Lakeland and Hubble, Norway still 17-5. They haven't lost in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They will take on Watersmeet Wednesday night, while Forest Park, who's in the 5 spot, 18-4. They've had a great season. They lost 2 games in a row towards the middle of the season, then 2 more as we move forward. But 18-4, that's a really solid record for Forest Park. They have North Dickinson Wednesday night, so all signs pointing towards Norway Forest Park Friday night.
Yeah, and
A nice little, I don't know, compliment you want to call it to Iron Mountain Menominee, which we're fingers crossed going to get Friday night as well.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at all 5 of these teams in Division 4, anybody could do it.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody could do it.
Which is why it's really interesting. I think we've said that all year.
Yeah.
Divisions 1 through 3, as we've looked at this poll week in and week out, you have those teams that are really dominating.
Yeah.
Division 4, you haven't gotten a lot of that. You have 2 4-loss teams in Forest Park and Munising. They've been really good, but not necessarily dominant, like a Marquette on a 16-game winning streak, a 1-loss Iron Mountain, and then Kingsford and Menominee as well.
Lakeland and Hubble, 3 losses. I mean, you don't know.
And Lake Linden gets Dollar Bay after their close win over Baraga.
What a
game. In the quarterfinal. So that was a fun one. Glad we got out there. So the Lakes have Dollar Bay on Wednesday, and then we'll have the winner of Chassel and Lance on Friday. So they are primed to move on to regionals, which is really good for Lake Linden Hubble, especially because their girls team looks almost unbeatable. Still only, I think that's it on the boys districts. As we mentioned, we have a bunch of games Wednesday. We will get those highlights on your late news, and then Friday, we don't know what we'll have for you, but we'll have a lot.
We'll have a lot. It is going to be busy.
Yes. So briefly, girls, 1 more week of the regular season to go. Not a whole lot of change in the UP poll, so I won't go through team by team, but Negaunee 19-1. I watched them win at Marquette last week. Looked really good. We'll catch up with them ahead of the playoffs later this week. Bark River Harris 20-1 in Divisions 1 through 3. They are going into Ishpeming tonight, which of course, if you're listening to this, you might know the result of. But 19-1 against 20-1. It's a great matchup. A nice little. I can call this an appetizer for the postseason.
Yep.
Even though they're not in the same division.
Don't throw the ball into the corner when Ishpeming presses. They're going to press you. I was talking to Josh Eagle.
I would like to hope that a 20-1 team like Bark River wouldn't
do that. I'm just putting it out there. I talked to Josh Eagle. I caught up with Ishpeming girls basketball ahead of their postseason to see what they're working on. And he said, our press is something kind of new. It's a combination. I was telling him, I was like, I can't really tell. Is it a diamond? Is it a man-to-man press? Is it a 1-3-1? And he said, that's it. That's the thing. It's kind of a culmination of everything. And so don't throw it in the corner.
And that's what we've said about the Hematites all year is they're so well coached that that's evident right there with what you're describing.
Yeah. And they're going to press. They're going to play fast. You got to be ready for it. Now, Barker Harris at 20-1, I think that they'll be ready for it. Also, I think that they've been watching Ishpeming. I think a lot of girls' teams have been watching Ishpeming this year and what they've done. So I think they'll be ready for it. It'll be a good one. And like you said, kind of an appetizer to what we'll see in the tournament.
Absolutely. Like I said, we won't go team by team in D4. Beyond Ishpeming, Baraga sitting there at number 2, and Lake Linden Hubble, a really solid win over Calumet. That came in there looking to win. It was only an 8-point win, but Emily Chokla had 30 more points. Really impressive. We should mention Megan Marta eclipsing 1,000 points for her career.
Yeah.
Kind of up against the gun for a senior to get there, and she got there. Really happy for her.
Yeah, happy for her.
As she's moving on to be a Wildcat next year. So her brother will probably get there, tomorrow. He's probably at 985.
Yeah, Ethan Marta. I mean, the way he's going, he's sophomore now, right? So junior year, maybe
he'll get there.
He'll get there.
I don't know if it's a record for Oscar Kangas, but his junior year this year got it in December.
Yeah,
Pretty impressive. So we'll see what happens. We'll talk more girls next week as we dive in when we see everything in front of us. Obviously, the districts are set, but we're still a week removed from that. So
we're still waiting.
We will hang out there, but looking forward to this week of high school basketball. Really gets going, and then before we know it, this time next week, we're going to be down to a couple of UP teams moving through with regionals. So Let's wrap it there. March Madness coming up in D1 real quick. Michigan State not looking good.
They need to shoot better. Tyson Walker needs to be okay with getting pressured.
That was one of the worst losses I've seen in a long time, and Tom Izzo agreed.
He said, in 8 to 10 years, right? When you look at some losses they have had some bad losses in the last 8 to 10 years. I think that one...
losing at home to Ohio State, they deserve a lot of credit since getting rid of Chris Holtmann. What the Buckeyes have been able to do, but you just can't lose that game.
You can't.
You're going to Purdue this week.
You can't. Yeah, and I
they'll still be in the tournament. Like you see Michigan State wherever they are, 7-10 line.
Yeah.
You're still almost expected to just pencil them in to the Sweet 16 at least, right? Where they got last year,
but you're playing.
Not encouraging for the Spartans.
I think it'll be interesting to see them play Purdue. And what they do and how they approach
I don't think it will. I think Purdue's going to smack them.
You think Purdue's going to?
Yeah.
You think the green and white
I've kind of had that stance all year long.
Note to self.
I texted you last weekend. They dropped the game on the road at Ohio State. Now we know Ohio State is the best team in the country.
The Michigan State Spartans fans watching this right now are screaming.
After the Michigan State game, we confirmed Ohio State's the best team in the country, so the Purdue loss was not even surprising in the slightest. But no, they took it to Rutgers. Oh, did they take it to
Purdue
Rutgers?
is scary, but I don't think that I can just...
They're a top 3 team. Houston played out of their minds at Baylor. They blew a lead and then hung on in overtime. Mm-hmm. Houston was a weird team in years past, coming from the American into the tournament. And I'm like, okay, even if they're a 1 seed, they have 3 losses. What are you really going to give me in the tournament? They've obviously gone to a Final Four under Kelvin Sampson. This year they really got it, and they're going to win the Big 12, which is
they're going to win the Big 12.
One incredible accomplishment, being this their first year in the conference.
Dare I ask who are you taking in the Big 10?
That would be the Purdue Boilermakers, led by Zach Edey.
This guy right here.
Big Ten's so boring.
Who are you taking?
It's a little depressing, but we'll see.
We'll see. March Madness fun.
It'd be nice if Purdue got to the Final Four.
I will make you a promise on my March Madness bracket that wherever Purdue lands, I'm picking the 16th seed that plays.
That's fine. No, that's great. You'll be eliminated immediately from whatever bracket pool we're in. Side note, Illinois looks like they could. I really hope they get to a Sweet 16. They haven't done that under Brad Underwood.
Do you have any under-the-radar teams?
It's just been a while. I do.
Yeah. Loyola Chicago, man.
Playing really well.
Playing so good.
Playing really well.
You see that? Yeah.
They might keep Indiana State out of the tournament.
Yeah.
No, they're in the A-10 now. Indiana State has played themselves back under the bubble after being ranked for the first time since Larry Bird.
Yeah, wild.
I love saying that. Ranked for the first time since Larry Bird. And everyone knows when you're talking about, it's like 79, title
Before
game,
I was even in
Magic,
existence.
and Larry, But I think we've heard enough about Larry Bird and his days at Indiana State and Magic at MSU, and then their battles in the NBA as well. So Indiana State, I hope they get in. Robbie Avila is kind of electric with sports goggles.
The sports goggles.
So he's really cooking. No, I will have more under the radar teams. USF is playing out of its mind right now in the American. So we saw a team from that conference go to the Final Four last year.
Yep.
We'll see. The Mountain West is probably going to get 5 teams in too. I'm thinking about them because they had another team that made it to the title game. I'm really excited for March Madness. That'll do it for this edition of UP Power. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your week.